I will show you how to set up NextJS with Convex as backend and then Clerk as user authentication, ShadCN, component library, or build your own component library, and Stripe as payment infrastructure. 1 second before we start, if you are interested and you need one-on-one coaching or group coaching, check out my website levelupnow.dev. First, I will Google NextJS setup and I will go here to getting started installation, and then I will copy this command. I will go to the folder where I want to install. This is my folder with projects, and I will just get a CMD to this folder and I will just paste the command. It's gonna ask you for the name of the project. I'm gonna say just start writing tutorial setup, and then press enter. So we want TypeScript, it's way better than JavaScript, and then we want slint, it's for checking our code while we are writing it, so it shows us some mistakes that we made. And then we want Tailwind CSS. We don't want source directory. It's just how I work. You can use source if you want. And then app router, yes, this is the new app router. You can read more about page versus app router if you Google it in Next.js. We don't want to change this import alias. And that should be our Next.js installation complete. It's just gonna install some packages, so we will wait for a moment. It says successfully installed, so now I can cd into this new folder that's gonna be tutorial setup, or I can just open it and then again just go here and say like this. So that's it for our Next.js setup. Now let's go to Convex Next.js setup. So Google it like this and Next.js quick start. So we already did this installation, and then we are gonna we cd it into the app, and then we just wanna say npm install convex like this. And the convex package installed. And then we want to go below and say npx convex dev. So this will prompt you to log in to your convex account. So if you don't have it, just go to convex.dev, and so I'm gonna go to convex.dev and create an account or log in. So if I press login, it's gonna get me to all of my projects. So here, these are my 4 projects. You can have maximum of 5 projects in your free plan. It says here, what would you like to configure? I want a new project, yes. Name, it's gonna be this recommended name, it's okay, and we will just wait for a moment. So if you are not logged in your CMD, it's gonna prompt you to log in, so don't forget that. Now we're just gonna leave this to run, because as we make changes in our so I'm gonna show you what it did. I'm gonna go here. It made this convex folder, and also it made this .env.local. So I'm gonna leave this CMD to run, so as soon as we make changes, it's gonna automatically update our code and our database and everything. So I'm gonna make a new CMD. And now I wanna install Clerk Authentication. So I'm gonna go to Clerk Next.js setup and Next.js quick start. And I'm gonna install this Clerk Next.js, so copy and go to the new terminal and just install it. And while this is installing, let's actually go and open another terminal, and I'm gonna say code dot to open this in VS Code code editor. You can use any code editor you want. So we will now go to clerk.com, and we will either create an account or log in. So I will go to my dashboard, and then I will create a new application. I'm gonna call it tutorial setup, and I want email login and I want Google login. So create next app, so users can log in with those things. And now we will just first we will copy this. Press here, copy your keys, go back to the code editor, and in .env.local we will just go down and paste this. Let me also go and check if my Next.js installed. So let me just npm run dev, so we can run our app and you can see it. While that's running, let's go click here to next and continue in docs. So we already did install, we did this. So we can skip this for a moment and we can go first to middleware. So we just want to copy this file, and go back to our code and click on some outer file and create middleware.ts. This is a reserved name, so it must be like this exactly. And then paste this code. So these are the routes in your application, that public routes anybody can visit. So I'm just gonna actually make this an empty array, because I don't want any routes to be visited by non-authenticated users. You can say, for example, just / if you want your homepage or landing page. If this is your landing page and you want that to be visitable by non-authenticated users. And ignore routes are also the same thing as public routes. The only difference is that so in public routes, Clerk is checking if the user is logged in or not. But in ignored routes, Clerk is not checking at all if user is logged in or not. It just gives them access to these routes. So I'm actually going to make both of these empty arrays, so nobody can visit any of my, for example, pages if they are not logged in. When you see that your npm run dev right here has ready status, then you need to go to localhost 3000 and pull information. So you just need to load this, and then it's going to start compiling everything. But since my routes are not public, it prompted me to sign in immediately. But before we can sign in, we need to connect our Clerk and our Convex. So let's do that. Let's go to Clerk, and here in JWT templates, we're going to create a new template. And we will choose Convex. And don't change this name. So next, we are just going to actually just save changes like this. And that's it. Then I will Google Clerk Convex setup. And then I will go to Convex docs. You can, I think, go to Clerk docs as well, but I will just go to Convex. And it told us to create JWT template. And then we will create a new file. That's convex/auth config.ts. So go to our code, and here in Convex folder, create a new file, auth config.ts, and then we will copy this code here, and then just paste it. And we need to change this your issuer URL. So go to back to Clerk dashboard, and then click this Convex that you created. You see this name must be same as this name. And then issuer, copy the issuer link, and then just replace this. But make sure, I think it's important that there is trailing / at the end, and save this. Now Convex and Clerk are connected. Just before we continue, I want to show you, so if you go here to user and authentication, email username, you can choose what user can use to authenticate. You can use pro features like phone number in development, even though you are not subscribed to pro. You will just have to subscribe to pro if you are using pro features in production. And what I like to do is go here and then make sure email is required, and then users can sign in with email and stuff, so you can read more. It's very simple to use. So now if I go ahead to my website and I can sign in with Google, and let me real quick confirm. And now I am able to go to my localhost 3000. And this is our code, it's showing properly, so this is what we have. Now the next thing, if we go here to my Convex dev and then we click tutorial setup, we don't have any tables, we don't have anything. So let's make table users, and when a user signs in with our Clerk, we want to save them to our table users if they are not saved. So, and then later we can use that table to for everything, send messages, but we just want to have user in our database. So let's go to Convex folder and create a new file, schema.ts. First, we will import define schema and define table from Convex server. Then we will import v from Convex values. This is for checking the types of the data. Then we will say define schema. So we need to define schema for our tables, and inside we will define all of the tables. Then we will say users table is going to be a defined table, and then we need to pass in the fields. So token identifier for now. Token identifier is the Clerk identifier, and we want to store that because that's how we are going to, for example, when we have a logged in user in Clerk, we can get the user from our database, the same user, with this token identifier. And then let's also store email, for example. You don't have to, but I'm just gonna store email to show you how it works. And then let's make an index. So we can, if you wanna search users by token identifier, you need to make an index like this. So the name of the index is by token, and then the field is token identifier. And that is it. If I just save this, we can see that, not here, but our convex functions are running, are ready. And so if I go back, we see that we have table users. And we can manually add document that says email token identifier. And the ID of this will be generated automatically when we add a new document. But we don't want to add this manually. We want to get this data from Clerk, from currently logged in user. So let's go to our home page. And let's just go to the page TSX, and then I'm gonna, inside of main, I'm gonna delete everything actually. This doesn't matter, so I'm just gonna say hello world. And in order to store user into the user database, I will go to Convex, and I will say users.ts. So first, we will import v from convex values. This is type check. Then we will import mutation and query from /generated/server. So mutation is for editing values, so adding values to the tables, adding new user, and changing the user and deleting the user. And query is for just retrieving values. You actually want to use query for retrieving because whenever something changes in the database, the query is going to automatically update your UI. So you don't need to like push changes from database to UI. It's going to be automatically updated if you use query. And then we want to just export const store. So this is the store user. So we're going to use this to store user as he logs in, as he creates a new account. And then that's going to be a mutation because mutation is for storing stuff into database. And we're going to pass in object. So you see this is an object. And I have extra, so forgive me, I have extra one, I will fix that, but this is normal brackets and object. Okay, so arguments, we can pass in like v.string, so for example, id is equal to v.string, but for now, not id, sorry, so like for example, name is equal to v.string, email is equal to v.string. I will show you how to do this, but for now, let's just make arguments an empty object so I don't complicate it too much. And then we're gonna create a handler function. Handler is gonna like define what we will do. So arguments and handler. So in handler we define our actions. First we will check if a user is currently logged in. So context.auth.get user identity. This is if there is no currently logged in user. This will throw an error. And then so I'm gonna say if no identity, if it's null, it can be user identity or null. Then I'm gonna throw new error called store user without authenticated user, so nobody is logged in. That is what you should do always in every like this mutation or query call to check if somebody is logged in or not. Then we will check if user is already stored. So we don't want to store him if he's already in our database. So const user, it's gonna be await. And then context.database. So this is the context here. We are passing it into our handler function. And then dot query. So you can put this in the same row. So we have database.query. You can put this in the same row. But so query user, this is the name of the table. And then with index. So if you remember, we defined index. And I'm going to say, so the index that we defined in users table, in schema here, it's called by token. So we can use a token identifier field to get the user. Okay, and then we're gonna say by token, and then we're gonna put this syntax q and then arrow function q.equals token identifier. This is the field is equal to identity token identifier. So this identity field that we are using has this token identifier, and then dot unique will execute this string, so it will execute this string and then return a unique user. But if there is more than one user with this unique token identifier, this will throw an error because we want it to throw an error. Unique should only find one. And if there is multiple, it will throw an error. I can say collect, then it will collect all of them, but it should be unique. So I want it to throw error if it's more than one user with this. And then if user is different from null, then we just want to return user ID. So user is already stored. So here we are checking if user is already stored. So if he's different from null, then we just return user ID. But if user is not stored, then let's go down and say user ID. So await context.database.insert, and then in table users. So that's from our schema. And then we will pass in object. These are just fields. So it should have token identifier is going to be equal to identity.token identifier, and email will be equal to identity.email. Now, if I remove exclamation mark, email can be undefined as well, but it cannot be undefined because in Clerk, as you remember, we set email to required. So it will not be undefined. So you can put here exclamation mark knowing that it will not be undefined. And then just return user ID because we are returning user ID. We're also going to return user ID. So that should work. Now, if there is no user, if there is user, you return. If it's different from null, but if it's null, then you just store the user and return user ID. This is our store function. Let me save this, and then it will automatically go here and update. Preparing convex functions, it will automatically update, and we can go here and see functions. And we have user store function, and you see that we have all of the code here as well. So this is a mutation. The way we call this mutation is let's go back to our page. So this is our page, and here above the return, we want to call that mutation. So I'm going to say const store user, for example, or just store is going to be equal to use mutation, and import this one from Convex React. And then it's going to be API, so import again .users.store. And so this is just going to initialize the mutation, but we need to invoke this. So we need to invoke it like this, and then pass in empty object, because so if this is a bit confusing, so we initialize here, but we need to call this. We didn't call this. So for example, if you are sending messages, this is, for example, send message. Then you have, for example, handle send message like this, and then you wanna send message like this. So every time you send a message, you just invoke this send message the mutation that you defined here. So we wanna just do this. Let me change back to store user. But you should probably put this into use effect. So as the home page loads, so use effect, and then just store the user like this, and then close use effect. So here we can see on our page that we are getting an error. Use effect must be in use client component. So when you have use mutation hook or use effect or use state, use query, you need to go to the top here and say use client. So these effects, mutations, and stuff, hooks can only be in client components. Okay, and now could not find convex client. Use mutation must be used in a React component tree under convex provider. Did you forget it? So here's what we need to do. We need to go to our layout, and here we need to wrap these children with convex provider, convex client. But we also need to wrap it with clerk provider. So let's actually make a new folder outside of everything here and call it providers, just so we don't make our layout too messy. So let's name it providers / convex client provider.tsx, just like that. So inside of here, we will first use client because we will use a lot of hooks. and then we will import loading from add components auth loading. Now we don't have this file yet, so this is just our loading state while user is loading the page. So we will actually make this file. And then we will import clerk provider and use auth from next clerk. And then import auth loading, authenticated Convex React client and unauthenticated from Convex React. So this is just to know state. So when I will show you when auth loading, we were going to say something, we're going to display something. When if user is authenticated something, unauthenticated something else, I will show you everything. Convex provider with clerk from Convex React clerk, and then interface, Convex client provider props, and we will get children because we will wrap our application into this Convex client provider. So I will show you. Let's go back to app and layout, and here where we have children, this is our whole application body. We want to wrap this with Convex client provider. Okay, so this should be opening closing tag, but we don't have this defined yet. So I will just save it. So these children, they're going to be passed in here, and then we're going to do something with that. So then we will say const convex URL is process.env.next public convex URL. If I go to .env.local, next public convex URL, this is our convex URL, and then const convex is new convex react client convex URL. So we are creating new convex client, and then let's define our convex client provider that we will import into our layout. So export const this, and then we will extract these children, and the type will be, this is the type, so convex client provider props. If you don't know how this interface works, basically we defined here these children, but this is not in the scope of this video, so you can just ask ChatGPT to explain to you this if you don't understand how this works. And then we will return something, clerk provider, so we want to wrap everything into clerk provider for our authentication, and then convex provider with clerk, but this requires two things. useauth is equal to useauth from clerk NextJS, and client convex, that is client is equal to convex, and then so when user is being authenticated, then we're going to show the loading screen that we will create. If the user is authenticated, we will show children, and if his user is not authenticated, we will also show children. But the difference between these two, depends on if you want to have some rows that are not protected by authentication. You still want to show children. So if you don't have this, then on the routes that are not required user, that don't require user to authenticate, nothing will be shown because you will only show children to authenticated users. So you will also need to show children to unauthenticated users. So these children, this will be our whole app, and we will just pass through all of these different components. So let's go back. Let's just save this, and let's go back to layout tsx, and we will just import this like this. And now what I want to do is I want to actually just outloading. I want to comment all of this, and I want to comment this. So we will not deal with that for now. Let's just go back and let's wait for it. And our page successfully loaded, and we successfully entered a user into the database. So now we have this authenticated user. As soon as our page loads, I will explain once more. So basically, when our homepage loads, it's going to use effect and store the user. So store user, I already explained what it does. So if I go ahead and delete this document, if I just reload this page again, it's going to store the user again automatically. So now we have this user in our database. For those who care, I will show loading component at the end because this is the least important. Let's now go to ShadCN. I need to show ShadCN and Stripe. So ShadCN NextJS setup, and we will go here. So if you want to be a good developer, you want to read documentation. So we already installed the Next.js app, so we will copy this. We will go here and just paste it. ShadCN is not a component library. If you don't know what ShadCN is, it's a collection of reusable components that you can copy and paste into your apps. So basically, if you have a button, this is the button that it will just get copy pasted into your app, and you can use this button as you have whole control of the whole code and everything. I will show you. There are so many components the ones that I usually use are avatar, so for user images, sometimes aspect ratio if I need to show image or video, card, I usually dialogue, so this is like this, form sometimes, input field for sure, and I use a few of these, select sometimes, popover almost always. So let's continue installing our ShadCN. So which style do you want to use? Default? Use default. I always use default. In New York, you will not have Lucid React icons, or Lucid React icons. I think I either use neutral color or slate. This is yes, we want variables, and that's it. Just wait for a few moments. Success. So now we can install our components. Let me go to a button, and I'm gonna go here and then copy this as npm, but I'm gonna paste it here. So I don't want to just install button. I also want to install Sonar, dialog, input, popover. That should be it for now. I'm just gonna copy all of this and then paste it. Now that it's installed, we can go to components and UI, and we have all of these components here. So if I go to app and our page tsx, I can say button, but import this one from add components, not from Radix, for example. And I will just say like this, click me. And then if we go back to our page, it says click me. Besides that, I can say, for example, variant. And if we go to this button, double click, we can see all of the variants that we have. So we have default, destructive, so it has all different these Tailwind CSS classes, outline, secondary, ghost. Usually what I use is ghost. But let me also show you what destructive looks like. Destructive. So now we have those two buttons. So this is the ghost one and destructive button. And I want to just remove all of this styling for now. So they're all going to be right here. One quick tip before we continue. Let's go back to our layout. And here where it says children, let's import toaster from Sonar, just like this. And now we can actually go anywhere and say, for example, on click, I want to say, I need to make an arrow function here and say toast from Sonar dot success, and then it worked. And then, so this will trigger the notification. I will show you. If I click the button here, or it was the other one, you see we have this notification. So this is what it, so you trigger the notification with toast.success or toast.error, and you must have, this is what displays the notification here. So you just put it here, and then you will be able to display it anywhere in the app. So now let's set up Stripe. So there isn't any like especially well-made documentation for Stripe. So let's just go to stripe.com. Sorry, just a quick thing, very important. If I say background green 500, full, it should be full height on the page, but it's not. And to fix this, you need to go to global CSS, and here at the top you need to say column, root, HTML, body, and then say height 100%. Save it. And now it's 100%. But when you are installing ShadCN, this will get deleted and reset. So you need to do this after you install ShadCN. go to the Stripe dashboard, and here you must turn on test mode, because if you are making purchases in live mode with your own money to yourself, some payment processors will consider that money laundering. So go to test mode and developers. Here in API keys, you're first gonna copy this publishable key by just pressing it. So you're gonna need these variables in env, local env. So the first next Stripe publishable key, and then paste it. And then the second secret key, so you're gonna reveal secret key, and then paste my password. Then we will copy this secret key, and I will paste it here. Next, open this more menu on the side and go to product catalog. And here we will create a new product that we are going to sell. So add product, and then name test product. And we will just say reoccurring or one-off for now. Let me select USD and say 20 USD, and then add product. So I will click that product, and we will need this price ID here. So this price ID, you're gonna copy that. But before that, we need to go to our code first. So let me just, let's just paste this price ID here. So Stripe subscription price ID. This doesn't matter. I can say one time here. Or it doesn't matter, the name of the variable doesn't matter. You just need to know what it is. Next, in the Convex folder, we need to create a new file, stripe.ts. We will also start a new terminal and say npm install stripe. First, we are going to import action from generated server, and then import API and the internal from generated API. These are convex functions, and then import Stripe from Stripe. Then we will create export const pay. So the goal of this is when user wants to initiate a checkout, we need to generate a link, a checkout link for Stripe, so the user will be redirected to that link. And that checkout link will contain our product information. So we're gonna create a new action. Only use actions in Convex if you need to communicate with the external API. It's better to use queries for retrieving data from database and mutations for storing and mutating data. So there won't be any arguments. It's gonna be empty, but it's also better to just pass arguments like empty object than not to pass it at all, because there will still be some data validation performed. Then handler, and then we're gonna say const clerk user await context auth get user identity, so the currently logged in user. And then also we need this user, and that's gonna be run query API .users.current user. So this will get the currently logged in user and read their data from the database. So this is the clerk user, this is the same user but from our database. They have a bit different informations. Then we need to check if this, if it's null, then user is not authenticated. Or if clerk user doesn't have email verified, then we say user email is not verified. So we want to have verified the email for this. Then we define Stripe object, and that's gonna be new Stripe. So this is next Stripe secret key. So in our local env must be the same name as this. And then API version, if you delete this and press Control space, then you're gonna have only this option, it seems. Then we will say domain is equal to process and next public hosting URL. So that's gonna be our next public hosting, which I don't have. So let's create it. I'm just gonna put it right here. We will redirect the user to this domain. So this is useful to have. Okay, so that's the domain. And then we are going to generate a session and return session.url. And then that's gonna be, so we're gonna redirect the user to that URL. And the way we will generate session is as follows. So const session, the type will be stripe.response, and then that's gonna be inside of that we have Stripe checkout session. That's gonna be await Stripe checkout sessions create open object, and mode will be subscription. we should put one-time payment here because we made one-time payment product ID or product. I'm not sure what will happen right now. I think it will just throw an error. So I will show you in both situations when you are making subscription and one-time payment product. So below that, we're going to say line items, and then price will be our process and Stripe subscription price ID. But it's actually called differently. So it's called, I think I called it one-time payment, Stripe subscription one-time price ID. So we need to change that. But I will just let me finish. So below that, customer email will be clerkuser.email. And this means that the email will be locked on the Stripe checkout page. The customer will not be able to change the email if we set email here. Then metadata. I think this is only useful. Oh, actually, this is useful. So when user purchases, the Stripe is gonna check, send a webhook to us, to our application, so we can check if the payment was successful. So on that webhook, we're gonna read the user ID and know which user made a successful payment. And then success URL. So after the user finishes the checkout or cancel URL, I'm gonna set both to our domain. So here you can change this subscription to payment. And so this will make more sense because now it will not throw an error because we have this is a one-time payment product. So I'm just gonna copy this name of this variable and paste it here and save. But we need to implement this current user. So go to API. So I'm just gonna go here to users TS, and below that we will export const current user. That's gonna be a query. And then arguments will be empty object. And then handler, we're gonna pass in context. And then we're gonna get identity of the currently logged in user. And then if there is no currently logged in user, we just say that. And this should be called current user, not select GPT, but you can change that. And then we're gonna return await context.database.query users with index by token. And then we're gonna just say token identifier is equal to identity.token identifier. And then that should be unique. So there should be only one, as I explained earlier. So that's it. So back at our homepage, page.tsx, it's just like in app and page.tsx. I'm gonna first say upgrade. Const upgrade is use action api.stripe.pay, and you need to import use action here from Convex React. So that's gonna be our action initialized. Then we also need router. So what this will do is we will get URL for the checkout and then router to redirect the user to the URL. And import router from next/navigation. You see, this is an error. I'm gonna fix this error soon. After that, we are gonna make a handle upgrade, and then we're gonna say const URL is await upgrade. So we define here the action, but we need to call it like this and pass in empty object. As you remember that this pay action takes empty object as arguments, and I can show you quickly here. So pay takes empty object as arguments. And then if there is no URL, just return from this handle upgrade function, just exit. But if there is a URL, then we will router.push URL. So here it's gonna say session.url. So it's gonna create a session and give us the URL for that session. So let me save this. Also, I need to create a button that says on click handle upgrade, and I said just buy. So handle upgrade is, so I don't know why I call this handle upgrade. It should be handle buy, for example. Sorry if it's confusing. So and here I said use router from next/navigation like this, and now this should work. Let me go back. And if I go here and click buy, let's see in a few seconds. Okay, so we get an error. Okay, so I forgot one very important thing. We need to go to convex.dev. All of these API keys, we must also put them on the convex.dev website. because these convex functions will execute on the convex cloud and it doesn't have access to our local environment. So on convex, we're gonna go to settings, environment variables, add, and just paste. It's automatically gonna be set like this and save all. And we will later add this Stripe webhook secret as well. Now I will go and reload this page. If I press buy again, there is another error. Invalid URL, undefined URLs must begin with, okay, so I forgot, we also need to add our secret URL, so this one, hosting URL, so add that variable as well, save, and go back and reload the page, and let me buy, and it works. We are now using the Stripe checkout. You can fill with this testing information, so 42424, this is all testing information, and then CVC doesn't matter, and then just pay. And also, this email will not be able to, user will not be able to change this email because we set it in our code. And for a few moments, we're just gonna wait here, and it says payment complete. And now we got redirected back to our page. And here on our test product that we created on Stripe dashboard, we see that we got some logs here that it's 200 okay, payment was successfully made. But we also need to set it up so when the payment is successfully made, the Stripe sends a webhook to our application and says this payment was successful, so let the user have the subscription, the product, or whatever. But just before, I want to show you, if you want this to be a subscription, I think you should just create a new product, but I think you can also go here and edit the product. And I'm not sure exactly, I think you need to add another price and say here reoccurring and all of that. So I think that would also work, but you will also have to go back to the Stripe and change this from payment to subscription, like this. But let me change it back to payment for now. And now let's click here to developers again, and then go to webhooks, and we want to add endpoint. So when payment is successful, we want to just send back to our web application. So the endpoint URL, go to your env local and copy this URL, next public convex URL, and then paste it here. That's going to be the URL the webhook is sent to, but it will not be .cloud but .site. And we will also create a route, Stripe. So we will create this route. Save this. Select latest API version, and we're just going to use this and then add endpoint. You must select events to listen. So checkout session completed. And payment intent created. Or no, sorry, succeeded. Yeah, succeeded, not created. And you can also add other like here webhooks, events. I will show you how to use all of them. Payment intent succeeded is happening when there is a renewal of a subscription. And then checkout succeeded is for the first time, one-time payment, or the first time the subscription is created, as I understood the documents. So I'm just going to say add events, and we have those two events, and add endpoint. So every time there is successful payment, successful checkout, or successful payment intent, it's going to send that information to our page. So we need to now go and create this /Stripe to receive this webhook. But before, I'm going to go here and say signing secret reveal and copy this signing secret and go back to our Stripe webhook secret, copy all of this, go back to environment variables and add a new one, save, and that's it. Now let's go back to our convex and say http.ts. I think it must be this name. First, we will import HTTP router from convex server, then HTTP action from generated server, and internal from generated API. And then we will const HTTP is equal to HTTP router just to define this, and we will export default it, this object. And then we will say HTTP route, so we need to define a route that's gonna be /stripe that we created, that we told Stripe to send information to. Method will be post for this route, and then handler for this route. So it's gonna be this HTTP function, and then all of this stuff. So first we're gonna say const signature is gonna be have type string, request.headers.get Stripe signature as string, and then const result is gonna be context run action, so internal Stripe fulfill, which we haven't implemented, but this will just send to fulfill this order after it's paid, and we need to pass in signature and payload to this fulfill that we will create, and we're gonna get this result. If result is successful, we're gonna do something. If it's not successful, we're gonna return status 400 server error, and if it's successful, we're gonna return response 200. So let's now create this internal Stripe fulfill. So let's go to stripe.ts. Here we will create the fulfill method, but this is going to be internal action, not action. So make sure to import internal action from generated server, just like action. The difference is if it's internal action, it can only be accessed inside of this convex folder, and you need to access it by calling internal.stripe.fulfill, not api.stripe.fulfill. Okay, so next we're gonna create this type metadata. So this is the metadata that we are sending here, metadata user ID. So just so it's easier, you will see how we will use this, just so it's easier to cast metadata into this type. Okay, so next we're gonna say arguments. It's gonna be signature and payload. Here we are sending signature and payload into fulfill. And then handler. So run query, run mutation. So this is our context, and the context for internal action or action has these run query, run mutation functions. And these are arguments, and we can, instead of just passing arguments, we can directly destructure them here. So signature and payload. And then let's define a Stripe again. So new Stripe process and Stripe secret key, API version, latest one. And then const webhook secret, process and Stripe webhook secret as string. And then try catch block. So const event is await Stripe webhook, construct event async, payload signature web secret. So this event will be our checkout successful, payment intent successful, whatever the event is. And then we're gonna say completed event is event data object as, so we need to cast into Stripe checkout session, and we need to extend this Stripe checkout session with our metadata. So metadata here. And then if event.type is checkout session completed, it must be this string, so this is the event. Then we will, then we can do whatever we want. We can give a user something, we can send him to whatever. Okay, so in this case, I'm gonna show you how to save a subscription, how to update user subscription, how to save a user subscription. So if we are using subscriptions, if you are using just payment, it's gonna be even easier, but you will be able to deduct from this. So const subscription, Stripe subscriptions retrieve, so we need to retrieve a subscription. You can go into documentation and read, just say like Stripe object API or just whatever you need in the documentation of Stripe. And then we're gonna pass in, so retrieve completed event dot subscription as string, and then const user ID is completed event metadata user ID. That's this that we are sending. So we need to know which user is subscribing. Okay, await run mutation. So this is the run mutation that we destructured here. Internal.users.update subscription. We did not implement this yet. Okay, so we're gonna call this update subscription method, and we will pass in user ID. Which user? Subscription ID. and the date at which it ends on. So this is gonna give you in seconds, and I wanna put it in milliseconds, so times 1000. And then if event is invoice payment succeeded, as I said, this means that subscription is being continued. So this means this is the first time paying for the subscription or a new one-time product. So here, I think here we don't have this metadata. We don't get this metadata user ID. We just get subscription ID. So we're gonna use this subscription ID to find and update the user subscription when it ends on. So subscription, we're gonna retrieve the same subscription again, and then internal users update subscription by ID, so by subscription ID, and then we're gonna pass in subscription ID and ends on. So these are two different methods. This is update subscription by subscription ID, and this is update subscription just without subscription ID. And then we're gonna return success true, and if there is an error, we're gonna just console log and then throw the error. Sorry, guys, am I talking too quickly? Tell me below if I'm talking too quickly. Maybe I'm talking too quickly. Oh my God. Okay, so now let's go to the users and then define these two functions. So it's gonna save the subscription. So in schema.ts, in the user table, we need to add a new field, ends on, so the subscription, the number where the subscription ends on, and then subscription ID. Both of them are gonna be optional. So this is gonna be a number that's gonna represent a date, and we will check if the subscription is active by just comparing which date is higher. So if the subscription date that subscription ends on is higher, then the subscription is still active. Make sure to have all of your npx convex dev running. Now we are getting some mistakes because we don't have these methods in the users. So let's go to users.ts. I also forgot in the schema.ts, besides searching users by token, we also want to be able to search them by subscription ID to find a user with this subscription ID and update the subscription. So in the users TS, first we will create update subscription, or this is create a new subscription, not update subscription, but this is just a bad name, sorry. And then we're gonna say, so it's gonna be internal mutation, and you need to import this it's gonna give you recommendation from generated server. And then arguments are gonna be subscription ID, and then user ID from which the subscription is being created, and ends on. As you remember, we are passing those arguments here. And then go back to users, handler, we're gonna get context, we're gonna destructure the arguments, and then just context.database.patch, so we're gonna update the user. So just pass in user ID, you don't need to mention which table, just it's enough to say just ID. And then these are what we are patching, so subscription ID is gonna be subscription ID, and ends on will be ends on. Okay, so this is when the user is creating a new subscription. This is not update, but new subscription. Now let's see what happens if user is extending the subscription. So as I said, so this is gonna execute here, new subscription is checkout session complete, and extended subscription is invoice payment succeeded. And I think we are not listening to this invoice payment succeeded. Actually, we are listening for payment intent succeeded. So go to the webhook, and here update details, and we should say payment or invoice payment succeeded here, and we will update endpoint, so add this event. So now let's say update subscription by ID, so we're gonna define this internal mutation again. Argument subscription ID and ends on, and then handler, and here we're gonna find user by subscription ID. It must be unique. If there is no user, user not found. and then context database patch, user ID, and then ends on. So we will just update the duration of the subscription. In order to test this subscription, I will scroll up to pay, and I'm gonna change this to subscription, save, and here in more product catalog, to our test product, I'm gonna go and edit product, and I will add another price. That's gonna be a reoccurring. Let me just be able to recognize this. So I'm gonna say $15 monthly, and next, and update price. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy this reoccurring prices instead, and I will go to our settings and variables, and just here I'm gonna change this, save. I will also change it in our env local, although I don't know how, I don't think this does anything, but I'm just gonna change it here as well. Let me go ahead and buy. So right now we don't have anything in our users, we don't have ends on and subscription ID. So let me just fill with this test information and wait for a few moments. Oh, we already have it. So subscription ID ends on this state. And it works. So it works. And this is actually like a number. So in your code, you just want to get this and then compare this number more than date.now, like this, and then that's how you know if you have subscription or not. And since also this can be undefined, you're gonna say in your code something like user.endsOn, and then question mark 0. So if it's null, you're gonna set this to 0, like this. And then you say more than date.now to check for subscription. And as I said at the end, let's add logo and loading components. So if you wanna go, you just wanna go to public, and actually we're gonna create logo.svg here. And in your development, you should just go to logo ipsum.com, and I don't know if you can use this in production, but I just like to copy this one and then go back and paste this into logo svg. So this is going to be your logo, the path. So anywhere in your app, you can just say image, and then source is going to be equal to /logo svg. But this cannot be here because this is not TSX file. Okay, and let's go now down to components, and then make a new file and say auth/loading.tsx. So we want to say import image from next image, and then we want to say export const loading component and make a return, and then make a main tag, and that's going to be flex, w, all of this stuff. If you don't know what this is, just ask ChatGPT. I will maybe explain it another time, not now. And then make image tag, and then source will be logo svg, alt logo, width height 200, and then also class name. We want to animate pulse and duration 700, margin auto. If I save this, go to our providers. This provider, we're going to uncomment this that I said. So I'm going to uncomment this, and I'm going to uncomment this and save like this. So now if I go and refresh my page, there will be this loading logo, and then it's going to be loaded. So while the authentication is being checked. If you need personal coaching, check out levelupnow.dev. That's my website where I offer personal coaching, one-on-one group coaching, and everything if you want to become a better engineer. As a bonus, let's go through some Convex documentation. So when you are querying a table, you can use filter, and you can filter fields. For example, if you have a field task list, that must be equal to task list. So this will return all of the rows of the table that have task list value at this value. And don't forget, you need to say q.equal and then q.field. It's not enough to just pass this field. You need to say q.field. So this is different from with index, where you don't need to say q.field. Order, you can order this by descending or ascending by date created. And then take 100 is going to take first 100 results. So here down below, if you are using context database get, you don't need to pass in the name of the table, you just need to pass in the ID of the input, the row that you are trying to get. So if you're getting users, you just pass args.userid, and it's gonna look into users and find that row. Queries have limit to the amount of data they can read at once. To guarantee good performance, check these limits here, but the limits are very big. There is nothing special about mutations that I can show you that I haven't already. So actions, these are actions, and usually you wanna use actions when you are contacting external APIs, and then inside of actions you cannot query database, but you can say context.run query, and then call another query function. External, like function outside of this function that you defined. For example, here, export const read data, internal query. And as I said, when you say internal query, it's only accessible in this convex folder and not in your client. And you need to say internal.myfunction.read data. So my functions is the name of this whole file. So this convex my functions.